So I'm going to go ahead and start out. Welcome everyone. I know we're going to have a lot more people coming in, but hey, let's not penalize the folks that are here on time. I'm RJ Kelly. I'm founder and chief visionary officer of Wealth Legacy Group and Wealth Legacy family of companies. And we're just delighted for you to join us here for day 2 of Will My Business Survive COVID-19? Or as my friend Tibby just said, will COVID-19 survive our businesses? So I love that. Great positive attitude. I hope you were with us yesterday, and if not, no fear. But yesterday we had a wonderful presentations by 3 different speakers. Max Bolka, we also had, who kicked off things about developing a recession-resistant mindset and gave us 6 steps to do that. Retired SEAL Team Captain Rob Monroe talked about the training that as a SEAL team commander and their troops, what do they do when they're put into overwhelming situations where, you know, for most of us, we would be panicked and immobilized, and yet they're trained on what to do, how to overcome that fear and move from uncertainty into action. And then last, Dr. Andy shared with us just a remarkable story. A wonderful Dr. Andy is a psychologist out of, Dr. Andy Ward is a psychologist out of Atlanta, Georgia, and shared with us again how so many have been paralyzed by this fear and uncertainty, and how to be able to move from that towards taking action, being able to be aware, to be cautious, to certainly do things to protect oneself, but to not be immobilized, and complete distinctive ways to do that and move forward. So you'll want to catch those. It is on SoundCloud, and it's also, we've posted it to YouTube. So if you didn't get that, or if you're just signing up today and you didn't get that, let us know. Send us an email to info@wealthlegacygroup.com. At info@wealthlegacygroup.com. We'll make sure that you get links to those videos, to the video and to the SoundCloud presentation. You're going to want to hear that, but you're also going to want to share that with others. You are going to also be so excited that you tune in today to what I've been calling my 4 tech titans. And I want to give a shout out to a remarkable organization here in town. It's called Spire. Some of you know it as Corporate Alliance. Larry Kesslin and Troy Romero and Lynn O'Halloran just do an amazing job in terms of providing a safe sanctuary where entrepreneurs can gather, and they have wonderful resources that they're providing. I've been a member there for a number of years, and I'm so grateful. And when I was asking who can we get to have from a technology standpoint be able to share, and all 4 of our folks that are sharing today are all also Spire members. Our wonderful videographer, Phil Ferrari, is also a member. And so big shout out to Spire. Thank you so much for helping us to get the right people into the right seats on the bus. So we've got Sanjay I'm going to try this again. I had it right. Prabhakaran. Sanjeev had one of the most popular recordings on our Wealth Legacy conversations, and we've gotten so much feedback. But Sanjeev is a CEO and founder of Bytes. We've got Daniel Amaro, who's the co-founder with Clarinet Solutions, and you're going to love his background, his screen background as well. There it is up at the top. Daniel Sackhow. Daniel is, again, a remarkable CEO. He's also partner over at 619 IT, and they are expecting their second baby too. We're very excited about that, and congratulations, Daniel. Last, we have Jorge Ruiz de Castilla, and I love just saying those names. I mean, it's just, you know, there's just something, it makes you smile. You cannot have a bad day when you say Ruiz de Castilla, you know? So Jorge is a CEO with ITCM. And so we're going to be recording today. Everything is free. If you are, again, watching this for the first time, joining us, you know, there's no cost to this. We are going to be packaging all of this series up, and we'll be providing completely free of charge. We need to save business owners. And in turn, if we can save hundreds and thousands of business owners, not just here in San Diego or Southern California, but farther, we're literally saving tens of thousands of jobs. But in addition to that, you know that we're also asking each of you to please go ahead and make a donation to the San Diego Food Bank. The San Diego Food Bank is remarkable in terms of their efficiency. They're actually able to provide a full meal 3 full meals for every $1 of donations. And we've already raised, just from yesterday alone, over almost 5,200 meals that we're going to be able to provide thanks to the generosity of folks like you that are listening. So if you're with us today and you haven't made a donation yet, please, we can send you the link. Actually, it's on the invitation you were sent. There's a link to send your donation directly to the food bank, and that way we can track it as well. So we can know what we're now going to go for. We were originally for 10,000. Hey, let's go for 20,000. Why don't we? 1 in 5 San Diegans is food insecure right now, and unfortunately, many of them are children, because for many in our community, children, their only meal, the only quality meal that they might get in the course of the day is when they're at school, and obviously now they're not. So for many here in San Diego, which is just extraordinary to me, that in this wealthy community that we live in, that 1 out of 5 are food insecure. So won't you help us, please, to make another impact in our community by being able to make a donation? Last of all, I want to just give a shout out to our 3 corporate sponsors. That, again, this takes time, yes, and I want to thank the Wealth Legacy Group team, phenomenal team, for helping pull this all together. But also financially, we want to thank our friends at Vistage, which is a remarkable organization for CEOs. If you're in a situation as an entrepreneur and CEO and you need to have some other people around you that you can gather with, that have your back, as well as extraordinary facilitators, you need to meet my friend Dale Robinette here in town. He is not only a Vistage chair himself, a master chair, but he's also the quality control, if you will, the chair to the chairs. A great entrepreneur in his own right. And so that is a group you want to really get connected with. And I know there are other peer-to-peer groups in town that are wonderful as well, but I just got to tell you, I love Vistage and love what they do. Also, we've got our friends from Home Street Bank, and they are SBA lenders. We also have the CVC loan group. So Thursday, if you're wanting to know more about how to access money as an entrepreneur, and I'm telling you right now, if you don't have your Paycheck Protection Plan application in, or if you've not gone online for it, it might be too late for you. Now, there are other amazing loans outside that PPP loan. We'll talk about that on Thursday, so you're not going to want to miss that one either. Tomorrow, we've got our elected officials. We've got both a federal, a state, and a county elected official. Krista Gaspar, good friend, is going to be with us. Brian Jones, our state senator, is also going to be sharing with us some of the programs through the state. And then Scott Peters, one of our congressmen, Scott Peters, is going to be talking about some of the federal programs as well, in addition to the SBA program. So you want to miss that. And then last, on Friday, we're going to have a presentation. I've got the Chief Medical Officer for San Diego County, who's going to be with us, Dr. Nick. Extraordinary guy, and literally on speed dial with the White House. But he's going to be talking, as well as another couple presenters, which includes me, on when do we return to normal? When, you know what? I don't think this is Kansas anymore, nor do I think, Toto, we're ever going back. But what does normal look like going forward? And when do we at least get some semblance of our lives back? And also financially, where do things go and settle down, please? So we're going to be talking about that on Friday. So all of that coming. And again, completely free. Let us know if you want this resource. We'll package it up. We'll send it to you. Just get us your name, your business name, your contact information, and please make a donation to the San Diego Food Bank. Okay, guys, hopefully I have not forgotten anything. You are in for a treat. You can have people that are subject matter experts. That's one thing. But to have subject matter experts that also know how to talk human, that you can actually understand what they're saying, and oh, by the way, are really fun to be with, that's the 4 titans we've got ready to share with you today. So without further ado, guys, take it away.
All right. Well, we wanted to take this opportunity to thank you, RJ, for putting this together, and we're pleased to be contributing as well for the food bank. So thank you very much for putting this together, and we're looking forward to sharing some good information for everyone here.
Well, thanks for the introductions, but just again, Jorge Ruiz de Castilla with ITCM. We're an IT consultant firm. We bring support, maintain technology for businesses.
And I'm Daniel Sakow with 619 IT. We do similar work, and we put people first in technology.
Good morning, everyone. Sanjeev here from Bytes. So we are here to essentially helping small businesses mobilize their operations by bringing in technology.
I'm Daniel Amaro with Clarinet Solutions, and we implement collaboration solutions. We believe that if an employee can connect their day-to-day work with the greater vision of their organization, they lead more fulfilled lives and get better work done. So today we're going to talk about surviving COVID-19, or how you can survive COVID-19, but really from kind of the nerd perspective, right? Or I prefer geek myself. So we're talking about what is surviving actually. Surviving in this climate really means, I guess, maintaining the same thing you had before, or just enough to actually get through it. But we want to actually talk about a bit more than that, right? The four of us put together this presentation, and we were talking about how you could actually make your business better through this whole crisis. Understanding that cash is the lifeblood of all businesses, we're looking at this from the lens of how do I either make more money, yay, or how do I save money, right? Do those two things. And how can I use technology to do that? One last thing we want to make sure we're clear on is the four of us are all small business owners. So we're right there in this with you, worrying about the same exact things, having the same exact challenges, whether or not we're technologists or geeks or nerds or whatever, we still have the same concerns you do. And that's where we're coming from. That's the perspective of this presentation. So we're going to talk about surviving and really get into thriving. So our agenda today is going to go through kind of a journey of talking about the challenges, what actually happened, what's going on, what are the threats associated with this crisis, what should you be looking out for, what are the opportunities, right? Glass half full here, for sure. We're gonna spend the majority of our time is gonna be talking about solutions because, face it guys, we're geeks, right? My background's Apollo 11 mission control. This is what we do. We're also gonna be talking about at the end how we can tie it all together and thrive with technology, and hopefully we'll have some time for Q&A. We got a lot of stuff for you guys today. So first thing, challenges. Some of our businesses have been forced to do things that we never thought we would have to do. If you're a restaurant, you're not open for regular business right now. But if you're any other kind of business, you're actually all working from home. It was craziness, right? Some of us were prepared for this a little more than others. Some of us were not prepared at all. And with that comes with a whole another set of challenges. How do we actually track employee performance? How do we gauge, if we're not looking and seeing someone in their office from 8 to 5, are they actually doing the work they're supposed to be doing? We got kids running into our place where we're doing work now. What is the place of work we have now? Right now, literally, I'm in my bedroom, right? So this is like the new world right now at this moment, and it's got a whole crazy series of challenges. This picture here, if you remember from, I think it was a tsunami disaster that happened in Japan. He was giving a whole download of what was going on to the BBC News, and his kids come running in, and he's got this little one with the little walker coming in, and the wife comes in, drumming in like through the door and drips. This is our world now, guys. At least for the foreseeable future, for a little bit. How do we deal with that? So, yeah, fun times.
Indeed. And there's some other challenges as well that, for example, when you're in connectivity and accessibility, is the software you use it in the cloud, or are you connected to the office, right? If you're on the cloud primarily, you have no problem, and that's the few that were ready. For those that weren't, then we're connected to the office. You may need to connect to your office computer. You may want to take your computer home, but there's other challenges as well. If you are taking your computer home, then there may be applications that you're connecting that have a database in the server in the office. And if that's the case, you might not be able to work properly. QuickBooks, for example, is a good example of this. The database is in the server and you have the application. You may have all the software, but again, if you're in a different network, you're not going to be able to connect. So at that point, you're better off working from your home computer on a laptop and connecting to your work computer to be able to make that work well. Other challenges include, of course, remote connections. It will be slower at times. You may be using dual monitors, and real estate is going to be important. Also, you may use solutions that don't necessarily lock or hide your office screen when you're working. So what you're doing may be visible to others in the office. Now, remember, more people are working from home, maybe most, but not everyone. So privacy could be a concern there. As far as security, I came across an article by CNBC. Phishing scams spike as hackers use coronavirus to prey on remote workers and stressed IT systems. And there's a few bullet points that I got out of this, but in this senior executive survey said that cybersecurity risks have increased as the majority are working from home. So phishing and other scams are rising over 40%. About 85% of the company survey said that at least 50% of their employees are now remote. Now, more people working from home, less protection in home networks, easy prey for phishing, emails, and spam. Home networks aren't just as secure as those in the office. So, do what you need to do, talk to your IT, don't be that back door for just about anything to come in to your office network. There was another article also from Wired, and it says that coronavirus sets a stage for hacking man. Bottom line here is that even the extra cautious employees may be more likely to take phishing scams at face value, since it's not easy to call across the room for a colleague or even IT. Phishing emails are getting more and more sophisticated, so we just have to be very aware and extra careful to identify what a real email is and what's a fake. So awareness is critical, right? And with this coronavirus, there's, again, increasing number of scams coming our way. And let's face it, the weakest point in our network is the user, us, right? Software will warn us, quarantine threats, tell us not to open something, but we are the ones that push the button.
All right. So on the side of the half glass full, I want to share a little bit of kind of my personal side of things. In our company, we have a lot of cloud systems. It was relatively easy for us to send the team home. But we were kind of anxious. We weren't super excited to be working from home going into it. And we never really evaluated the opportunity to have remote workers. We very much work as a team in the office at our company. And we thought about it pre this situation. And we were in a position that was a lot more fortunate than a lot of the people we've seen where they have systems that don't easily go home. We were able to just pick up our laptops, desktops, and do that on Friday the 13th when all the schools here in San Diego said they're sending the kids home. We followed suit and sent our staff home. Meanwhile, now we've been decentralized for, I think it's 3 weeks, and we can say it's been actually an interesting time. We've learned a lot, and I feel like we've identified some opportunities where we can be using technology like this to be training new staff, recording the trainings, and then have that as a resource going forward. So there's actually some efficiencies by embracing these types of tools that even as a tech company, we didn't even want to pursue, but now we're saying, oh, this is the type of thing we might not go back from as far as embracing these types of tools. This also opens us up as we, prior to all this, have been on a pretty rampant expansion. We were thinking, oh, we might have to pick up more office space as we're expanding. This now says, well, maybe the office just becomes the headquarters and we actually can embrace a remote team. So in all of this madness and the craziness, we're finding that there are things to appreciate in all of this, and the tools are there if you want to embrace them. So the lower overhead opportunities are great. And then, of course, as we're finding, we have a younger workforce. As you're all hearing, millennials might be eating this type of thing up, where they're working from home, having a little bit more flexible schedule. This very well may be the incoming workforce a little bit more in a flexible way. So ability to attract next generation talent, as you see, there's a lot of opportunities in all this. So we were pretty quick to, let's say, decentralize following suit with the schools. However, we've seen some of our clients that were a little slower to want to send their teams home. And meanwhile, it's been our job to give them the tools, the resources, so that they can decentralize when they choose to. And we'll talk more about that here. Sanjeev, did you want to touch on streamlining the operations?
You're right. Yeah. So, definitely a lot of opportunities our clients are seeing also. And, some of the things that you as organizations can look at is taking this situation as an opportunity to review the current environment, look at the operations, and see how whether there's a way to streamline it and get better technology in there, so that you're better prepared when we all come out of this situation. I mean, some companies that I see, that I talk to, are looking at saving some cash flow by outsourcing some of the tasks that are not core to their business, and that's another area to look at. There are a few companies that are thinking about how to train their resources remotely and bringing in some efficiency in the whole training process. So we'll take a look at some of these as we move forward.
Absolutely. And one other point I forgot to mention, obviously I'm sure we're all appreciating the commute to the office has gotten a little bit more streamlined as we go from the bedroom to the home office. So there's other pluses in all this where, we can roll out of bed, have our coffee, and get right to work without skipping sometimes the hour-plus commute. So with that, we'll move on.
Yes, indeed. We all love that commute nowadays, if we're making any commutes. But let's go over the solutions. Now we're going to get into the meat and potatoes of the presentation. And we're going to take a look, a little deeper look at systems, tools, security, and how you can improve your business with technology. So what do I do to make sure that my business survives from the technology side? Be nimble. Set up your business to have remote capabilities, be mobile, right? This may not be your new normal after the dust settles, but now you will have the capability and can do it partially or as needed. Daniel Saka will go over, take an inventory of what you have to figure out, what you have or where you go from here, and whether to build on or start from scratch. Communicate, automate, integrate, and then Amaro will cover communication and collaboration and go over some of the tools available today, such as Teams, Zoom, Google Suite. We'll address connectivity as well during this section. When it comes to automation, I would say automate as much as possible. The time savings are considerable and life will be easier. A great example is our own invoicing workflow. Our operations manager would review the ticket or project. If ready to bill, would close the ticket, send to invoice it. Typically, same person would go to invoicing module and physically create the invoice. This is important as it creates the invoice and it synchronizes with QuickBooks for financials. Once that's done, accounting will go to invoicing and send the invoices to the clients. Now, with the new tool, we simply close the ticket, approve billing, and the tool picks up, creates the invoice, synchronizes with QuickBooks, and sends it to the client. So this process alone saves quite a bit of time every week. However, the biggest benefit is that the invoice is sent with a link to pay right there and then, and the customer can pay with a credit card or ACH. So now you recognize an additional savings in collections, which helps with cash flow. And of course, cash flow is critical to us all. So that's automation. And I would say protect yourself. Let's see, there you are. Cover your bases when you're outside of the office and no longer on constant oversight from IT. We'll cover threats, what to be aware of, what's ideal. And as for business improvements, and Jeep will cover how to make software that doesn't talk to each other to work. So you can automate your workflow without necessarily having to replace what you currently use. And be strategic about it. Speakers yesterday went over how not only to survive, but to thrive in this environment, which is also the theme of our presentation today. What is the new normal? What should be implemented going forward? And how do you get there?
All right. So we all have existing systems in our business. If you look at this wall of logos, some of them might speak to you and be recognizable, like QuickBooks, that QB that's green in the corner. obviously the Apple and Windows side of things. But the essence here is this is an opportunity to kind of step back, look at all the systems you have in your business, figure out which ones fit, and figure out where you might need to add to it. So if I'm going to work my way over kind of from the left to the right, and these aren't necessarily exclusive. You might have some of these that are concurrent, but the essence of all this is use what you have to the most potential, to the highest potential. The Office side of things, you might be in Office 365 or G Suite. If you're not in one of those two platforms, you might be on Exchange or Pop Email. This is where your email primarily lives. And that almost unlocks a lot of these other collaboration tools as far as how you can build all of this upon that for your business. But take stock, look at your accounting system, understand how it's accessed. Is it cloud first? Is it something where you have to remote into it? Where's your CRM? Is this like an ACTS database that sits on the server and we have to connect to it? Or is this the opportunity to move to something that's more cloud-based, like Salesforce or HubSpot or Pipedrive? And then, as Jorge mentioned, security is huge in all of this. We need to make sure we're not just doing open links where anyone can remotely connect. We want to layer in security with a VPN, with something like Cisco or Fortinet if we're connecting into the office. And then, of course, making sure we've got all our files in a good spot, like OneDrive, Dropbox, all those places where we can collaborate. So as I kind of alluded to with the logos, all of these things kind of fall in buckets. As we're talking about taking stock, make sure we've got something here where our team can really do their work from wherever they are. If they're home, if they're in the field, if they're in the office, we want to make sure people are accessing email first and foremost. My mom actually works with an insurance company. They do bill review. And she had to go through this in the Bay Area where she's taken her computer home, she's setting up, she uses Outlook in the office. She doesn't have Outlook on her MacBook Air at home, and she has to make sure all those things get up. So there's a lot of little fine tuning to make sure that systems can be accessed. And now's the time to kind of check out and say, are these the right systems? Files, same thing. We talked about Dropbox, all that. And then collaboration is probably where we're going to learn the most today, as we're really embracing these types of tools like Zoom or Slack or other things. Now, one of the words of caution I want to say is use what you have. In the Microsoft land, we talked about, Exchange and email and stuff like that. There's different licenses in Microsoft. You can bump it up, and now you might have Teams with the next up license where you're not having to build something from scratch, and it's already where you are. In the Google land that my office plays in, we have Gmail or G Suite, and now we're embracing Google Hangouts and other tools where we might not necessarily need to buy Zoom if we already have Hangouts. So take stock of what you have, understand the capabilities. It might just be a little bump up so you get some of these collaboration tools and you're not having to buy all sorts of fragmented solutions. You might already have something that works together that you don't even know about. And of course, compliance is going to be something to take into account here. We've seen articles where SpaceX is saying we can't use Zoom company-wide, 6,000 employees, there's not going to be any Zoom. It doesn't meet the security requirements that they have in being a government contractor. There's things like that that are also worth keeping in mind as we're looking at tools. So it's not just go get Zoom, go get Slack, and now you're off to the races. Understand what you need, and that's where your technology professionals are going to come in to make sure you're checking all the boxes. So on that note, take a high-level view, take a look at what you have. Some of the systems you might be able to adapt just by bumping up the licenses. If you're realizing you don't have the AOL Instant Messenger of today, like Slack for your company, you're not using Google Hangouts or something like that, those are opportunities where we can identify gaps and fill that solution. Slack is a great solution. We use it in our office even though we have Hangouts, just because we prefer Slack. Slack is great. It's a great tool, but this is the time where you find those gaps, fill them with these types of tools, and a lot of these are super easy to implement. As you're going in and saying, oh, I want that new shiny thing, I want Zoom, I want Slack, I want all those things, security, of course, is very important to keep in mind, and then single sign-on is another thing to hope for. As you're, let's say, playing in the Microsoft land, you have one credential that gets you into all of Microsoft land. If we're playing in Google land, we have one credential that gets us into all of Google land. There are other things in the background where you can plug it in, where you have the letters SSO, stands for single sign-on, where you can have that one Microsoft credential that might allow you to get into Slack, might allow you to get into those other things. And from a security perspective, it allows you to tighten up the whole organization. So security and single sign-on are also important pieces here.
Sorry, the dreaded mute button. One of the challenges of these remote meetings. That was me. I did it. Guilty as charged. So talking about in-person meetings or collaboration actually and solutions that we have, I'd like to take a step back and take a look at what we're actually trying to do, right? So all of us are working remotely, and we're replacing something that's physical with something that's virtual or digital, right? So things that we used to be able to do is just walk to each other's cubicle and just have a conversation. That is really not able to do that. We shouldn't be doing that right now, right? And so what we're doing is we're actually replacing that with something that's actually going to be the best thing we got, which is video, voice, and the people, right? So even things like team building exercises are actually going virtual now. So where we used to be able to take our aggression out on PC load letter, you know, now we got to do that through Zoom or Slack or something like that. So that's what we're trying to do. Really what it is we're not able to meet in person anymore, right? We've got something that's phone. Millennials don't know what that means, but most of us do. We've got email. Most of us know what that is. So we can actually send emails back and forth and communicate that way. We also have the ability to instant message each other, and we have the ability to add video to that whole mix, right? So what we're trying to do is replace the physical with the virtual, bring our whole team together through some video, through some voice, and try to get to the best thing we possibly can. Now, this could be something that's internal to your organization, or as someone asked a question here, it could be something that you have to do with your clients, right?
Like we may have lost Daniel there.
Right.
You're back,
You guys
Daniel.
hear me now? All right.
Yeah.
I'm back. This is the beauty of working from home, guys.
That's right.
Exactly what Jorge's talking about. So I would stress that, you know, you're trying to bridge these things together, bring the people together, have the voice and have the video. A lot of folks that I see using Zoom or WebEx or GoToMeeting or whatever it is, they're not putting in the video aspect of it. But the video part of it is important. You know, putting this presentation together with the four of us, these three other guys, we did it all through Zoom. We did it all looking at each other. We could see each other's facial expressions. We got the voice, the tone inflection, as best we could replace the physical we did. And so I would stress you do the same thing. Here's the platforms you can look at that would allow you to do this. You got Zoom. We'll talk more about the secured elements of Zoom in just a second, at least Jorge will. Cisco WebEx, GoToMeeting, Google Hangouts, Microsoft Teams, all of these things are bringing those three components together: people, video, and voice, right? Trying to replace the physical. So take a look at those. Either you might have these already, take a look at them if you do have them, and if you don't, check out which one works best for you. All right, so documents, something that actually work on together. We used to have these things like file cabinets. I haven't seen one of these in years, so I had to go find a picture of one of those. Then us nerds came along and said, well, let's put all those files and make them digital. It's funny how the server racks actually look almost the same as the file cabinet. There's big rectangular boxes. And then we went, oh, you know what? I got something better for you. Poof, it all goes to the cloud, right? So most of us have already done some of this where we've gone from the physical here to the virtual or digital. Now, and a lot of us have already jumped from that to the cloud. We don't even have servers in our offices anymore. And here's the platforms you can take a look at that you might already have. You're already doing this. Google Docs is a great one. Box, SharePoint, Microsoft Teams, really the same thing, to be honest with you. Dropbox, if I were to say, and I think most of us on this call would agree that Dropbox is probably our least favorite, and we would say really steer towards something that's a little more enterprise ready, like Google Docs, Box, SharePoint, or Teams. But that's going to allow you to store your documents. Instead of putting them in a file cabinet, you're going to put them in the cloud. All right, last thing here. So collaboration. I love this inbox, right? We used to actually have these things called, this is actually a piece of furniture. It's not an inbox, right? It's actually like a wood piece of furniture. The one I had on my desk a while ago now was something more like this, plastic with papers in it, and honestly, it just got dusty. We replaced all that, going from physical to the virtual, with something that looks like this, which is honestly possibly even more chaotic, to be totally frank. So how do we actually communicate with people? How do we understand that there's something is in my inbox? How do we ask someone to do something for us or with us? Really, what comes to mind for those solutions are going to be something that's a little bit more message driven, bringing documents together with the message and having people interact with each other. For those solutions, we're looking at Microsoft Teams that has chat capability, Slack with chat and file sharing. All those things are kind of coming together, and that's what we want to take a look at for those.
Let's talk about connecting remotely, and we'll talk about a few tools as well. So, some of you will only need to work via internet, right? Some of you will need to connect to the office. Most likely, for most of us, since we weren't really prepared for this type of stuff, we'll need to connect to both. And of course, our office will need to be connected to the cloud. But what does connectivity look like for you now that you're working remotely is the question. Right? There's many popular tools, and both Daniels have talked about both of them. TeamViewer, LogMeIn, Go to My PC, Splashtop, what have you. There are some concerns with some of those tools. Some have gotten hacked or have gotten hacked in the past, and then there's also the privacy issue too that I mentioned earlier. So we always recommend VPN, and Daniel Sacco mentioned this as well. Now, let's talk about VPN for a minute. I'm sure most of you have heard of it. Some may even know what it is. So let's take a quick look. Now, we have the virtual VPN, right, which is a connection that you have to your office. Basically, what it does, it creates a tunnel that is secure and is protected. That's what we emphasize VPN, because it's secure, it's encrypted, it's protected, and it gets you to the office where you want to be, where you need to be. There's also site-to-site VPN that some of you may have used when you're going to have multiple offices, so you're connected to servers in the cloud. That's what's set up for you all the time, so that you can make these connections and access the information that you need. Now, the key here is going to be that it's encrypted, it's protected, it's secured, and it is managed by IT. Another interesting tool is dual-factor authentication. And some of you may have heard this, right? Now, this is extra security, very important right now, that involves something that you know with something that you have, right? So here's a quick story on this. So basically, if you don't know what it is, let's say you're accessing email, you enter your information, and you're not allowed in until a code is sent to your phone. You check the code, you enter it, and now you're allowed into your email, for example. So a quick story on this. Old client, we were supporting the office in San Diego, and they had an office on East Coast, an office in France. CFO in San Diego talking to CFO in France via email, so they thought, right? They were both talking to hackers. Now, everyone was copying the CEO in the East Coast. However, the CEO was the culprit. His email was hacked. Now, if he would have had two-factor authentication, when the hacker is logging into the email, they would not be able to validate that they are the actual owner of the email. So that would have been a way to potentially stop that. At the end of the day, of course, they got away with a couple $100,000. Another tool that is interesting, password security. And this is something that we use internal. Many people, different people, different preferences, but we're using LastPass currently. And another story on this is a prospect customer that has all their computers with the exact same password, give and take 50 users, same password. Now, what happened a few weeks ago? Ransomware, right? Now, what's the management problem? They need and want access to every single computer with the user's credentials. So with LastPass, you actually can access your credentials and people that are below you's credentials. So it comes downwards, right? You can see theirs, but they cannot see yours. So you're protected as a manager or secretary, what have you. So that's something that is very helpful as well. So let's talk a little bit about equipment. When you're working from home, Now your monitor, you're gonna want to have dual monitor, particularly if you're used to that, right? Maybe a small TV is okay, like a 32-inch or something like that, but real estate is gonna be important. If you have a VoIP phone, bring it home. You should be able to work it anywhere, but you can also use the app, whether it's on your computer or on your phone, on your cell phone. For your new normal also, you may want to spend a little money on a headset. That's a personal preference, but we can also provide recommendations. In terms of keyboard and mouse, unless you work with a laptop keyboard and you love the limitations of the laptop keyboard, you're going to want to have keyboard and mouse at some point. When working from home, look at your devices. Patches and updates is important. That's going to help with vulnerabilities, limit exposure. Antivirus, anti-spam, of course. Backup is always going to be important. Now, you can back up just your data. You can back up your full computer. You can do an image backup, if you will. So what that will help you with is if you have programs and you need to restore from backup, then that will put your computer as it was before, whether the ransomware attack or computer gets stolen, whatever it is. So figure out which one is important for you. Also, as you are getting things more secure, don't forget passwords, right? Make sure that you use caps, lowercase, numbers, special characters, and no less than 8 total. And please do not leave your password written down on a Post-it note right next to your keyboard. That has to be secure. That's why LastPass is a good option for you folks. Secure your network. Lock down your browser. Those are basic things that you can do at home. And of course, get support and advice. Ask us. Whatever you need, we're here to help. Let's take a look at phishing. And I'm sure many of you have heard many stories about phishing and phishing campaigns and whatnot. So we do phishing training with the clients. And basically what we do is we just send phishing emails. And some users will click on them, some users will not. At the end of the process, we'll end up with a report that we produce and give to the clients. And if a few click on it, or many or most, then we'll recommend training on phishing. I'm sure many of you have seen things like this, right? Email from Amazon. And then how do you figure this out? When you hover with your mouse over the actual link that they post in there, it's a masked link, right? And it will actually, when you hover over, it will show the real link in the background. If it's not the same, delete it immediately. This is another one, the IRS, but this is coming from ahr@irxt.com. Obviously, that's that real address, but that's important to see because we just had a client actually a week ago whose client was hacked. So what happened was my client sent an email, right, to their client. Because their email was hacked, the bad actor deleted that email and sent an email with a completely different email address with my client's name on it, but a different email address with transfer information, dollar amount, etc. Now, the bad actor also sent an email to my client, right? And asking for the routing number and all the information. Now, because of our software, that email immediately went to spam, so our client didn't see it. And it's a good thing because if she would have responded, the actual transfer amount was for $250,000. Now, the bad actors did get away with some money, but it was only $18,000 with their fake information sent to my client's client. So gotta be on top of that. It's very, very, very important. A couple of other emails, one that I got, and what happens is, we get into the day-to-day, right? And you get presented with this and say, wait a minute, what is this $2,700 that I spent? No, I don't recognize. And the second you click that, then you're inviting somebody into your computer. Now, we talked about COVID-19 phishing emails. Here's one of them, right? And again, CDC email and telling you to click in here for more information. This particular one I enjoyed. This I received just a couple of days ago. This is supposedly from a 68-year-old woman that is not going to survive the virus. She's going to die, and she wants to distribute her funds to whoever wants them, right? So you're supposed to be clicking on this. Now, here, if you see, we're using Sophos for this. So this is wrapping around the link that is included in this email. So this is a great tool because it's going to protect us. And when we click on this, it's going to send it to what's called a sandbox. Sandbox is going to try to run it and see if it mimics a virus. And if it does, it's going to shut it down. So another great tool to have in there.
So as we're embracing all of these new tools like Zoom in a more serious way, we're learning new terms like Zoom bombing. So what's interesting in all this is all you really need is this little phone number looking like thing. So Boris Johnson, Prime Minister of the UK, tweeted his screenshot of his cabinet meeting, and then another savvy Twitter follower said, "Hey, you just published this thing. Isn't this a security risk?" And indeed, it is. If these meetings aren't secured, anyone who has that number or that link or that email that we all distribute so that you guys can come into these types of meetings, if those are not necessarily kept in a secure way, you can have people coming in and being a nuisance in the meeting. And yeah, there's ways to quiet them and kick them out and things like that. But as we're embracing new technology, there are best practices we can be learning. Like you guys were probably welcomed into this in a waiting room and then invited into the actual webinar. You don't have to be sophisticated in this. You just have to kind of know how to use the tools. So Zoom bombing is a new thing. It's a fun term, if you will, but it does present some serious consequences, and there are ways to lock it down.
So thank you. And so what we want to get into now is kind of, we looked at how do you survive and go through these situations, but also looking at opportunities and how you can improve your business situation. So there are 4 areas that I would like to touch on. One is integration of systems. And this is something that many companies can look at and see. Some of the companies that we talk with have a lot of systems that they work with, and some of them don't talk to each other. So how do you integrate that and create a central dashboard to get a better view of things? And these are things that can help in situations like this where you're remote and talking to different employees in different locations. The second area I would look at is real-time data tracking. Some of the companies out there have a lot of people out in the field. How do you control that? How do you get data from these remote people in a more efficient and time-saving manner? The third area is automation. How can you automate some of your day-to-day operations? There might be a lot of duplicate entries that's happening in the company. How can you improve that? How can you be better prepared to come out of this situation and thrive in the future? And those are some of the things to look at. There's also a fourth area of remote learning. A lot of people have people out in the field or salespeople that can be trained remotely. And in fact, yesterday I was looking at the news article. There was a company called Korsky that just shot up their customers by 30% in just 2 weeks. So a lot of these online training that can be done, which can not only motivate your employees, but also keep them engaged in the current technology. And so let's see if I can control this to the next one. All right. Okay, so what I want to look at here is some of the benefits of what the remote and real-time data tracking can help most companies out there. So it can definitely improve your daily operations, and the day-to-day workflow that's happening in the company can be significantly improved. You get to collect data remotely. So if you have people out in the field, they can be sending the data in real time. And we'll go through an example after this to show you what we did. The ability to verify the data remotely. So now in the time of social distancing, you don't want people close to each other and looking at data and trying to verify that. How can you do that remotely? Those are some of the things that we implemented for some of our clients. The CFOs like this aspect of avoiding invoicing delays. That's critical for many businesses. How can you speed up that whole process of sending invoices to the client? When you have, we had an example of a client who was suffering because it was taking them almost 6 weeks to get their invoices out because of all the in-between processes. And we'll go through an example there also. Another area that companies are looking at is using a lot of these sensors called IoTs, or Internet of Things. And this helps to, again, streamline their operations and collect data remotely and be able to provide better outcome for their customers. So those are some of the areas to look at in this current situation. I mean, all of these things definitely, in the end, motivates employees and helps them to work more efficiently with these apps. Okay, so let's see. All right. So one of the examples I wanted to go through is a company that did real-time data collection. And the challenge that they were facing, this is an example of a real estate appraiser. This company has about 20 plus appraisers, and their daily task is going to different homes, and each one does about 8 to 10 homes a day. And their typical operation is using regular cameras and notebooks to take the notes. And it takes them about 20, 30 minutes per home. But at the end, what happens? At the end of the day, each of these agents, they go back to their office or their home and dump all the pictures and data into their master system. And that takes them anywhere from 30 to 60 minutes at the end of the day. So each one spending like about an hour a day, 20 hours a day to kind of, for a company that's spending that much time in manual labor. So what we came up with this for this company was a mobile system, which allowed them to kind of, each agent gets a list of their homes on their phone every morning. And when they get to the home, they click on the address, they get there, and then they are able to basically enter all the data into the form itself on the phone and take pictures if necessary for that particular room. And that collects all that data into the application. And so the advantage here with this remote operation is you are getting all that data, and before they leave the house, the data is already in their system. So they're saving that much of time at the end of the day to go and take that process into their system. Let's see. All right, there. My keyboard is getting stuck, I think. All right. I think it went far too ahead. All right, there you go. So the advantage that this company had at the end was, they didn't have to use any separate camera or a notebook. Just the phone or the tablet that they were using was able to collect all the information that they wanted. And so they ended up saving about 7 to 10 hours per day for the 20 agents. So in the end, it was basically about 40 hours of labor that was manual labor that the company was saving each day. So that's the kind of preparation that an organization could do now by looking at their operations and see if there are areas that could be enhanced. Now, this was another example of a system that we created where a workflow was automated as much as possible. And this is a typical example here is of a custom tailor who was spending, doing about 5,000 alterations every week. And their typical process was to go into their warehouse where they would line up these candidates, and they would have a manual sheet of paper that basically, let's see, okay, it looks kind of like this, which is a manual 3x4 sheet of paper, and it would have a list of 80 different alterations and the names of the candidates, and then they would basically, a person called the boardman would start taking all that information. So we converted that into an 8x10 tablet application. And now they would just punch buttons for each of those different kinds of alterations that they need to do. And the second person can verify that. Again, these two people can be in different buildings or different rooms, so it's all remote access to the data in real time. And that's kind of the beauty of looking at some of the operations to see, where can you do some time saving. And this is how the warehouse was doing. The recruits would be lined up, and the tailor would do the measurements, and the boardman is basically taking the data onto the tablet. So it's all done in real time, and the data is available, pretty much within a few hours. So the big savings these guys had, this was a company I mentioned earlier where their invoicing was taking almost 5 to 6 weeks. But once we implemented this system, that came down to like within 2 days, they are now able to ship out their invoice. So that you can see how the cash flow is just, big savings for them, because now instead of waiting for 60 days, within a couple of days, they're able to send the invoice, get the payments, and that significantly improved their cash flow, which helped them to expand the operation. And so this is kind of where some of these mobile and web-based technology can help in improving the operations. And this is another example, a quick one, about real-time data tracking with IoT devices, Internet of Things. And I'll just quickly go over this as we're running out of time here. But basically, they had a very cumbersome interface initially. It's a web-based application that they had, and it was kind of tedious for field operators who are out in the field. And so we converted that into a quick, simple mobile app that now the technicians out in the field are quickly able to drill down from the map and pick up the device or the control system that they're trying to manage, and they could quickly see the savings in time and real-time data that they could get using these Internet of Things type of sensors hooked up to these devices. And finally, some of the e-learning tools, as I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of those tools that are out there. So to quickly summarize, what we just went through was, how systems could be integrated better, how you can automate your workflow. Think about, what kind of real-time data that you could get that can save the operations in the company. And this is some of the areas where you could come out of this COVID-19 situation and get into a future mode where you're thriving and being more successful. All right, Daniel, your microphone needs to be turned on, and you're muted, Daniel.
All right. So, yeah, I think we went over the challenges that we're kind of facing this crisis, went over threats, opportunities, some solutions that we have there. And I'm really thinking about, surviving, if you were managing your business in any kind of responsible way before this crisis, you had some momentum going, right? Imagine it's a stone wheel, this stone flywheel, right? Good to great is where that's come from, right? And it's actually moving, it's going. We had momentum beforehand. I'm sure all of you did. Really, surviving is about how we just maintain that momentum, or at least keep the wheel spinning even as little as possible to keep going. But thriving is really about how we actually make that wheel spin a little bit faster or a little bit easier. And I hope that you saw some of the tools today, whether you're taking stock of what you've got, like Daniel was talking about, you're looking at making sure that things are secure, like Jorge was talking about, or you're making it more efficient with the things that Sanjeev was talking about, how you can actually go from just surviving to actually getting your business to thrive and be better. All of us on this, when we put this together, are really all glass half full kind of guys. We're looking at this and going, there's some major opportunities for all businesses in this crisis, and it's up to us as business owners and leaders to find them and actually get them to go, and technology can definitely help with those. So that's basically it. I'm going to open up for questions.
Okay. I'm on headset now, so hopefully you can hear me. Are you getting an echo on your end, or is it just me?
No, you sound good.
You're good.
Okay, perfect. We had a couple things. So we do have a couple questions, and I'll put this out to the panel. And here Tom asks, how can we get customers to be more receptive to webinar-based meetings if they're in an industry that's conditioned to face-to-face meetings?
I think that the thing there is really back to that collaboration and what we're trying to do, replacing the physical with the virtual, digital. You got to leverage the technology that we have in its full capability to get as much rich sort of communication you can have, which is really the culmination of the joining of the voice and the video together, right? It's the best we can do with what we've got. You're gonna, I mean, as far as getting clients to jump onto that, it's a little bit tough, but I will say, if you use your video, you use the voice together and get them conditioned to seeing your face, you're gonna have a lot better success. If it's just a phone call, it is not the same. If you're using Zoom, WebEx, GoToMeeting with just voice, I would highly suggest that you don't use just voice. Get the video going.
If you don't mind, I'd like to add to that is kind of make it easy. Some of these solutions require you to download and install different agents and clients and things like that. Find and test whatever one you want to use, understand your demographic, and find the solution that's an easy fit for the client. And then also know it on the client side so you can walk them through. Oh yeah, it's click on the link in the calendar link I just sent you. Like, we use Google Hangouts a lot in my office. It's literally as easy as clicking on a link from Google Hangouts. And sometimes they might have to install a little helper tool, and it's super easy. But we know that, so we can walk people through it when they're having to be the recipient for the first time, and maybe they've never used Google Hangouts. So if you're going to choose a tool, practice it, learn it, do a test call with one of your friends so you know what it should look like for the client. That would be my best advice there.
Yeah,
if I could take a stab at it. I just
want to add to that is, a lot of times what I found is, the first session is difficult, but after that, the second following on, people get used to it.
Sanjeev, that's exactly what I was going to say as well. I've got clients now that are so conditioned to looking at screens, whether we're looking at their investment returns or we're looking at their insurance contracts, or maybe it's looking at a tax sale. We're looking at selling their business and looking at various techniques for selling and either reducing or eliminating the tax on the sale. In my office, we're looking at a screen anyway. So I've got one fellow that his office is 10 minutes from mine. And he said, RJ, look, I'd just rather go screen to screen. He had gotten so conditioned to being able to converse and look at things that it was easier for him, faster, for him not to jump in the car, come over to our office, even though we're only 10 minutes from each other. Mm-hmm. So part of what's happening now is people are getting conditioned. They're finding out that they're more efficient and effective. One of my friends that I'm in a men's Bible study with is in the Homeland Security. And they're saying that they're way more efficient now with doing the number of web-based meetings they're doing than when they were meeting live as a group. And on top of that, they're safer.
Mm-hmm.
It takes a pandemic sometimes to help everybody look into technology as a solution. And it's a lot of it's ease of use, right? With Zoom's really easy. It has its risk, absolutely, and those risks will probably get addressed in time. But I mean, whatever works for you, that's the thing that needs to be found out. Just make sure that for your client, it's ease of use. It's just one click, they're good to go. It's working or done.
I'll give another shout out for technology. We happen to use Ring Central, which both partners with Zoom on some of the concepts and products, and then they have their own standalone products. But we use the voice over internet protocol. I think, Jorge, was that you that mentioned that? But it's great because literally when we closed our office down, we took the phone, our VoIP phone as it's called, and Perla from our office, who is our first line of defense on the phone, plugged it in at home, and boom, she was answering calls at home just as easily as if she was in the office. Perla, thank you very much. I know you're listening.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what I was talking about. And one of the great things about it is now you're home, everybody is at home, and it's only an extension away. So easy to communicate, fast, and very, very basic configuration, if any at all.
One other thing we didn't touch on that I think might be worth noting here, as we still have some people in the meeting, on those home internet connections, if you do have the option where you can plug in an Ethernet cable to the laptop and just skip Wi-Fi altogether. I love Wi-Fi. I'm a huge proponent of Wi-Fi. I use all the Wi-Fi I possibly can. However, if we're doing these types of things and we want to be able to have stable Zoom calls, nothing's going to be more reliable than plugged into that hard wire at home. We have that at the office. Sometimes we might just default to the Wi-Fi when we take our office setup home. But there's some nice fine-tuning touches there where we can get the optimization out of really what you already have. One other thing that's a little pro tip, when you are at home and you haven't really had to do these things before, go to a website called speedtest.net and understand what the internet that you have is providing. If you've got 50 megs down and 1 meg up, you might get choppy video if it's only 1 meg up. You might need to take stock of the internet and potentially bump that up as well if you're having some of these challenges, either from Wi-Fi or slow internet. So some more pro tips for you guys.
Well, we're a little bit over our time, so I want to invite anyone else that still has a question that hasn't been answered yet to send that over. We'll be watching for that here as we wrap things up. But I want to move us to closure, if we will. This today has been recorded, so if this has been helpful, just let us know and we'll get that to you. It will also be posted on YouTube and SoundCloud and some of our other resources on the wealthlegacygroup.com website. We'll be having all of these conversations as well. You can see the emails, the websites of our wonderful speakers from just surviving to thriving. That's what we heard about today. And I want to thank Daniel Amaro, Daniel Sakow, Jorge Ruiz de Castilla, and Sanjeev Prabhakaran. Wonderful in each of their own responses and in their respective areas of discipline. So you got a taste of that. I got to tell you, these are amazing guys. Again, thanks so much to our friends at Spire and Larry Kesslin for suggesting this amazing team. And tomorrow, again, we have elected officials. You will want to hear what is available through the county and the federal processes in the state. Thursday, what we're hearing, by the way, from various SBA lenders is they are no longer accepting direct applications. There's $350 billion that's been set aside by the government for this new, what's called a PPP loan. Is if you continue to make the salaries to your staff, the loans to do that will be forgiven. Well, guess what? The pipeline got open very quickly on Friday, and so Wells Fargo, among others, has stopped taking direct applications. There are a few lenders that are still, and so we're going to be introducing you to a couple on Thursday. Hopefully, they're still accepting new applications on Thursday when we talk. But again, check in with us if this is something you want to get done today. You don't want to wait till Thursday for your application. But in addition to the SBA loans, there are also what we call micro loans up to $150,000, and reputedly they fund within 2 weeks. So that can help you keep the doors open. And then on Friday again, when do we get to return to normal? Thanks again to our major sponsors, Vistage, tremendous resource, and my friend Dale Northup here. Sorry, Dale Northup is another friend, Dale Robinette. With Vistage is a tremendous resource. And again, if you're a business owner, entrepreneur, you want a group of other entrepreneurs to hang with, Vistage members have a 5.5 times greater revenue in 2008. It grew from 2008 to now, 5.5 times than other companies. Pacific Life, gosh, they're an amazing company. We're grateful for them, based here in Southern California. Again, they are one of our wonderful sponsors, and Home Street Bank, and as well as our team at Wealth Legacy Group. By the way, I'm going to be speaking today from noon to 1 on the idea of how do you sell a business or appreciated asset like real estate or other things. How do you sell that and pay no tax for 30 years? So if you're interested in listening to that, send an email to rj@wealthlegacygroup.com or info@wealthlegacygroup.com. Let's see what's on my list here. That's it for today. So again, guys, beautifully done. Thank you so much. You are rock stars. And for the rest of you out there that are listening, remember, we are each one of us leaving a legacy every day. I don't care how badly I screwed up yesterday, whether I kicked the dog, whether I was mean to, you know, whoever I was on a webinar with yesterday. Today's a fresh new chance to make a difference in the lives of others. So how do you do an act of kindness for people you love, but how do you do an act of kindness for someone that you don't know? So find ways, look for ways. Let's be kind to one another, be safe, think about what you're doing. We're going to get through this as a country stronger than ever. So again, thanks for being with us. Tune in tomorrow, 9 o'clock. See you then.
Thanks,
I'm
RJ.
RJ Kelly. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks, RJ.
Thank you. Thanks, RJ.